Have you ever wondered if that younger man in your life sees you as more than just a friend? Maybe he lingers a little longer in conversations, or his eyes light up in a way that makes your heart skip a beat. Perhaps you've noticed subtle changes in how he behaves around you, small gestures that seem different from how he treats everyone else. If you're an older woman who's caught the attention of a younger man, you might be questioning whether what you're seeing is real interest or just friendly courtesy. Here's the truth. When a man is genuinely falling for an older woman, his actions speak a language all their own. These aren't the typical dating games or surface-level attractions you might have experienced before. No, when a man falls for an older woman, he reveals himself through specific behaviors that are impossible to fake. Today, we're going to decode 7 unmistakable things he'll only do if he's truly falling for you. And fair warning, some of these signs might surprise you, challenge what you thought you knew about attraction, and possibly change how you view that special someone in your life. So if you've been second-guessing his intentions, wondering if you're reading too much into things, or questioning whether age gap attraction is even real, stay with me. By the end of this video, you'll have absolute clarity about where you stand in his heart. Welcome back to The Heart Code, where we explore the deeper truths of human connection, relationship dynamics, and the psychology behind genuine attraction. I'm so glad you're here today because we're diving into a topic that doesn't get nearly enough honest discussion. What happens when a man falls for an older woman? Before we begin, if you find value in this video, please take a moment to like it, leave a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Your engagement helps us reach more people who need to hear these truths. And if you really want to support the work we do here, consider leaving a super thanks. It means the world to us and helps us continue creating content that empowers and enlightens. Now, let's talk about something that society often overlooks or dismisses: the profound and authentic connection that can develop when a man falls for an older woman. For too long, we've been fed a narrow narrative about attraction, one that suggests men are only drawn to youth and that women of a certain age should somehow become invisible. But reality tells a completely different story. More and more men are discovering that older women possess qualities that simply cannot be found elsewhere: emotional depth, life experience, confidence, independence, and a kind of magnetic presence that comes only with years of living authentically. When a man encounters these qualities in a woman, something shifts in him. His attraction isn't superficial. It's not about checking boxes on some shallow list of physical attributes. Instead, he's drawn to the essence of who you are, the wisdom you carry, the way you move through the world with purpose and self-assurance. But here's where it gets interesting, and where many older women miss the signs. A man who's falling for an older woman shows his feelings differently than he might with someone his own age or younger. Why? Because he knows he's stepping into different territory. He recognizes that you've likely been through relationships before, that you can spot games and manipulation from a mile away, and that you won't tolerate the kind of immature behavior that might work on less experienced women. So his approach becomes more genuine, more thoughtful, more intentional. He reveals his feelings through actions that demonstrate not just attraction, but respect, admiration, and a desire to prove himself worthy of your attention. The 7 behaviors we're about to explore aren't random. They're psychological patterns that emerge when a man is experiencing genuine romantic interest in an older woman. These behaviors are rooted in his subconscious need to bridge the perceived gap between you, to demonstrate his maturity, to show that he sees beyond age to the remarkable person you are. Some of these signs are obvious once you know what to look for. Others are subtle, easy to miss if you're not paying attention, or if you've convinced yourself that someone like him couldn't possibly be interested in someone like you. And that's exactly why we need to have this conversation. Too many incredible women dismiss or downplay male interest because they've internalized society's toxic messages about age and desirability. You might find yourself thinking, he's just being nice, or he probably sees me as a mentor figure, or there's no way someone his age would be romantically interested in me. But what if you're wrong? What if those thoughts are causing you to miss out on a potentially beautiful connection? What if his feelings are as real as yours, but you're both stuck in a dance of uncertainty because neither of you wants to make assumptions? Understanding these 7 signs won't just help you decode his intentions. It will empower you to trust your instincts, recognize your own worth, and make informed decisions about how you want to respond. Because here's something else we need to acknowledge. Even if he is falling for you, you still get to choose whether you want to reciprocate, encourage, or redirect that interest. This video isn't about convincing you to pursue any particular relationship. It's about giving you the tools to see clearly what's happening so you can act from a place of knowledge rather than confusion or self-doubt. So let's dive into these 7 revealing behaviors. Pay close attention because you might recognize some of them in your own life right now. And remember, it's not about seeing 1 or 2 of these signs and jumping to conclusions. It's about recognizing a pattern, a constellation of behaviors that together paint a clear picture of his feelings. Sign 1. He seeks your advice and actually implements it. The first thing a man will do when he's falling for an older woman is something that might seem simple on the surface, but carries profound significance. He actively seeks your advice, wisdom, and perspective. And then, this is crucial, he actually follows through and implements what you've shared. Now, you might be thinking, wait, isn't that just what friends do? And yes, friends do seek advice from each other, but there's a distinct quality to how a man behaves when he's romantically interested in an older woman that sets it apart from ordinary friendship. Let's break this down. When someone asks for advice casually, they might listen politely, thank you for your input, and then proceed to do whatever they were going to do anyway. We've all experienced this, but when a man is falling for you, advice seeking becomes something else entirely. It becomes a bridge he's building between your worlds, a way of saying, your experience matters to me. Your perspective shapes how I see things. I value not just your words, but the wisdom behind them. He'll come to you with questions about his career decisions, asking how you navigated similar crossroads in your professional life. He'll want to know how you handled difficult family dynamics, relationship challenges, personal setbacks. He's not just making conversation, he's studying you, learning from you, incorporating your worldview into his own decision-making process. And here's the revealing part. Days or weeks later, he'll circle back to tell you how he applied your advice, what happened when he tried your suggestion, how your perspective changed his approach to a situation. This behavior reveals several things about his feelings. First, it shows that he respects you intellectually and emotionally. He sees you as someone whose life experience has created valuable insights, and he wants access to that wisdom. But it's deeper than respect. When a man is falling for a woman, he subconsciously wants to align himself with her worldview. He wants to see the world through her eyes, to understand what makes her tick, to incorporate elements of her thinking into his own life. It's a form of psychological merging that happens in the early stages of falling in love. Second, by implementing your advice and reporting back, he's creating ongoing points of connection. He's giving you both something to discuss, a shared experience, even though you weren't physically present for whatever situation he faced. This is his way of weaving you into the fabric of his daily life, making you a consistent presence even when you're apart. Every time he uses your advice, he thinks of you. Every time he faces a decision, Your voice echoes in his mind. You become a permanent fixture in his internal world, and that's exactly where a man wants the woman he's falling for to be. Third, this behavior demonstrates his desire to prove himself to you. He knows you've lived more, experienced more, learned more. He knows you might see him as less mature, less settled, less experienced. By seeking your guidance and successfully applying it, he's showing you that he's capable of learning, growing, and benefiting from your influence. He's saying, without words, "See, I'm not as immature as you might think. I can take wisdom and use it. I can be shaped by you in positive ways." But there's another layer to this that's equally important. When a man seeks advice from an older woman he's falling for, he's also testing something. He's testing whether you'll take him seriously. Will you brush off his questions? Will you treat him like a child who couldn't possibly handle complex advice? Or will you engage with him as an equal, sharing your hard-won wisdom while respecting his autonomy to make his own decisions? Your response to his advice-seeking actually tells him whether you might be open to seeing him as a potential partner rather than someone who's off-limits due to age difference. Now, let's contrast this with what happens when a man isn't romantically interested. When there's no romantic attraction, advice-seeking, if it happens at all, tends to be sporadic, superficial, and forgettable. He might ask your opinion on something, but it's passive, thrown out casually without much investment in your answer. He certainly doesn't circle back to tell you what happened or how your perspective influenced his actions. The advice comes in one ear and out the other, because he's not trying to build anything with you. He's not trying to intertwine his life with yours. He's just making conversation. But when he's falling for you, every piece of advice you give becomes a treasure he stores away. He remembers not just what you said, but how you said it, the examples you used, the emotion in your voice when you shared lessons from your own experiences. He might even keep notes, mental or physical, of insights you've shared. He brings your perspective into conversations with others, saying things like, "Someone I really respect once told me," or "I learned from a very wise woman that." He's claiming association with you, proud to be influenced by you, eager to let others know that someone of your caliber has invested time in advising him. This sign also manifests in how he responds to your casual observations or offhand comments. You might mention in passing that you found meditation helpful for managing stress, and suddenly he's downloaded 3 meditation apps and wants to tell you about his experience trying it. You might share that you learned to set better boundaries in your 30s, and he starts asking thoughtful questions about how you did that, what changed, what you wish you'd known earlier. He treats your lived experience like a masterclass he's been granted private access to, and he's an eager student who doesn't want to waste a single lesson. There's also something deeply intimate about this dynamic that goes beyond the surface-level exchange of advice. When he shares his struggles, dilemmas, and uncertainties with you, he's being vulnerable. He's letting you see parts of himself that he might normally keep hidden, especially from someone he's trying to impress. This vulnerability is a gift, and it's one he's offering because he feels safe with you. He trusts that you won't judge him, belittle him, or use his uncertainties against him. And that trust, that's the foundation upon which romantic feelings deepen and grow. Pay attention to the kinds of advice he seeks. Is it all surface-level stuff about which phone to buy or what show to watch? Or is he coming to you with the big questions, the ones that require real wisdom and life experience to navigate? When a man is falling for you, he wants guidance on the meaningful stuff. He wants to know how you've handled heartbreak, how you found your purpose, how you learned to love yourself, how you balance ambition with contentment. These aren't questions you ask someone you're casually friendly with. These are questions you ask someone whose inner world you desperately want to understand, someone you're trying to learn from because you hope to become worthy of them. And here's something else to watch for. Notice whether he ever challenges your advice or engages in genuine dialogue about it. This might seem counterintuitive, but it's actually another positive sign. When a man is falling for an older woman, he doesn't want to just be a passive recipient of wisdom. He wants intellectual engagement. He wants to discuss, debate, explore ideas with you. So if he sometimes pushes back thoughtfully, asks probing questions about why you believe what you believe, or shares alternative perspectives for you to consider, don't see this as disrespect. See it as evidence that he views you as an intellectual equal, someone worth engaging with at the deepest levels. This brings us to a crucial point: the quality of conversation that develops around advice seeking. When romantic interest is present, these exchanges become increasingly deep, personal, and frequent. You might start by discussing something relatively neutral, like career strategies, but before long, you're talking about childhood experiences that shaped who you both are, fears you've conquered, dreams you're still chasing, mistakes you've learned from, and values you hold sacred. The advice seeking becomes a vehicle for profound emotional intimacy, and that intimacy is exactly what he's craving. One more aspect of this sign deserves attention. Watch what happens when your advice leads to positive outcomes in his life. Does he make sure you know about it? Does he express genuine gratitude? Does he give you credit for the role you played in his success or breakthrough? When a man is falling for an older woman, her influence on his life is something he celebrates, not something he downplays. He wants you to know that you matter, that you're making a difference, that you're important to his growth and development. This acknowledgement is his way of saying, "You're already playing a significant role in my life, and I want more of that, not less." Conversely, if your advice doesn't work out as expected, notice how he handles that too. Does he come back to you to discuss what went wrong? Does he ask for your perspective on why things didn't turn out as planned? Does he treat it as a learning opportunity rather than a failure of your guidance? This resilience and continued trust, even when things don't go perfectly, shows that his interest in you runs deeper than just wanting quick solutions to his problems. He's committed to the ongoing exchange, to the relationship itself, not just to the utility of your advice. So if you've been wondering whether his constant questions and attention to your opinions mean something more, ask yourself, is there a pattern here? Does he consistently seek out your perspective on important matters? Does he follow through on what you've shared? Does he come back to tell you how it went? Does the nature of his questions suggest he's trying to understand you at a deeper level? If the answers are yes, you're witnessing the first clear sign that he's falling for you. He's not just making conversation, he's building a foundation brick by brick, conversation by conversation, piece of advice by piece of advice. And foundations are what lasting relationships are built upon. Sign 2. He makes himself indispensable in subtle ways. The second thing a man will do when he's falling for an older woman is quietly, almost imperceptibly, weave himself into the practical fabric of her daily life. He makes himself useful, helpful, and eventually nearly indispensable. But he does it in a way that feels organic rather than pushy or overwhelming. This is a sophisticated behavior that reveals not just his feelings, but his understanding that an older woman isn't looking for someone to rescue her or take over her life. She's looking for a partner who enhances what's already working while making life's challenges a little easier to navigate. Let's start with what this actually looks like in practice. You mention in passing that your car has been making a strange noise. Most people would say, "Oh, that's too bad. You should probably get that checked out." But when a man is falling for you, his response is entirely different. He immediately offers to take a look, or to recommend his trusted mechanic, or to go with you to the shop so you don't have to deal with it alone. And here's the key: he doesn't frame it as you needing help. He frames it as him wanting to help because he cares about your safety and peace of mind. Or maybe you casually mention that you need to move some furniture around in your apartment. Before you've even finished the sentence, he's volunteered to come over this weekend with his truck. You mention that you're trying to figure out a new software program for work, and suddenly he's sending you tutorial videos he found, or offering to walk you through it step by step over video chat. You're heading to the airport early in the morning for a business trip, and he offers to drive you so you don't have to worry about parking or ride shares. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but won't any good friend do these things? And yes, true friends do help each other out. But there's a quality and consistency to this behavior when romantic interest is involved that sets it apart. When a man is falling for an older woman, his helpfulness isn't sporadic or conditional. It's constant, attentive, and anticipatory. He's not just responding to direct requests for help. He's paying such close attention to your life that he identifies needs before you even articulate them. This behavior is psychologically revealing in multiple ways. First, it demonstrates that he's truly listening to you, not just hearing words, but absorbing the subtext, the concerns, the small stresses that you might mention without even realizing you're asking for help. This level of attentiveness is the hallmark of someone who's emotionally invested. When we're falling for someone, our brains become hyper-attuned to everything about them. We remember details that seem insignificant to others, but feel crucial to us because they're about the person we're drawn to. Second, by making himself useful in practical ways, he's showing you that he brings value to your life. This is especially important in the context of an age gap attraction. He might worry that you see him as less established, less capable, less equipped to be a real partner. By demonstrating practical competence, whether it's fixing things, handling logistics, or solving problems, he's proving that he's not just emotionally mature, but practically capable as well. He's saying, I can hold my own, I can take care of things, I can make your life better, not more complicated. Third, and this is crucial, he's creating interdependence. Every time he helps you with something, a subtle connection forms. You begin to think of him when certain situations arise. Your car makes that noise again. You think of him. You need to pick up something heavy from the store. His name pops into your mind. You're trying to plan a complex trip. You wonder if he might have insights. He's becoming woven into the fabric of your daily thoughts. And that's exactly where he wants to be. But here's where it gets really interesting. When a man is genuinely falling for an older woman, his helpfulness never comes with strings attached or expectations of reciprocity. He doesn't keep score. He doesn't make you feel guilty or indebted. He doesn't use his helpfulness as leverage to guilt you into spending more time with him or seeing him as more than a friend. Instead, his offers of help come from a genuine place of care. He simply wants to make your life easier because your happiness and well-being matter to him. Notice also how he responds when you try to thank him or offer to reciprocate. Does he brush off your thanks as if what he did wasn't a big deal? Does he seem genuinely uncomfortable with the idea of keeping tabs on who does what for whom? This is significant. When romantic feelings are involved, helping you doesn't feel like a favor or a chore. It feels like a privilege, an opportunity to demonstrate his value, to be close to you, to play a positive role in your life. Let's contrast this with what happens when romantic interest isn't present. In friendships or casual acquaintanceships, help tends to be more balanced and transactional. Someone might help you once, but they expect similar help in return. If the balance feels off, resentment builds. The help that's offered is usually limited to major situations, not the small, everyday things. And there's certainly no pattern of anticipating your needs before you voice them. That level of attentiveness only exists when someone is romantically invested. There's also a beautiful subtlety to how he goes about this. He's not inserting himself forcefully into your life or trying to take over. He's not suggesting that you can't handle things on your own or treating you like you need constant rescuing. He respects your independence and capability, but he's also saying, even though I know you can handle this yourself, wouldn't it be nicer if you didn't have to? Wouldn't it be better if you had someone in your corner making things a bit easier? This approach is particularly effective with older women because it respects the reality of who you are. You've been managing your own life successfully for years. You don't need someone to swoop in and take over, but having a partner who lightens the load, who shares responsibilities, who makes the day-to-day aspects of life more enjoyable. That's not about need, that's about enhancement, and that's what he's offering. Watch for how this behavior evolves over time. In the beginning, his helpfulness might be limited to obvious situations where his assistance is clearly welcome. But as time goes on and he becomes more confident in your dynamic, he starts taking initiative in more subtle ways. He might notice your favorite coffee is running low and show up with a bag of it. He might remember that you have a big presentation coming up and send you an encouraging message the morning of. He might notice you've been stressed and suggest a specific activity he knows you find relaxing. These small, thoughtful gestures are even more revealing than the big, obvious acts of help. Anyone can offer to help you move furniture when you explicitly mention needing to do so. But remembering that you mentioned 3 weeks ago that you were running low on a specific household item and then showing up with a replacement, that's the behavior of someone who's keeping track of the details of your life because you matter deeply to them. There's also something to be said for the kinds of help he offers. Pay attention to whether his assistance is generic or tailored specifically to you. Does he offer the same kind of help he'd offer anyone, or does his support reflect a deep understanding of your specific circumstances, preferences, and personality? When a man is falling for an older woman, his help becomes increasingly personalized. He learns your rhythms, your stress triggers, your preferences, your pet peeves, and he uses that knowledge to offer support that feels custom-made for you. For example, he might learn that you hate dealing with tech support calls, so when you mention having an issue with your internet provider, he offers to handle the call for you. He knows you're particular about how your space is organized, so when he helps you with something, he's careful to put things back exactly where they belong. He remembers that you prefer morning workouts, so when he suggests activities together, he proposes evening options so they don't conflict with your routine. This level of attentiveness and accommodation is extraordinary, and it only happens when someone is deeply invested in pleasing you and fitting smoothly into your life. Another aspect of this sign worth noting is his consistency. A single act of helpfulness doesn't mean much, but when this behavior becomes a reliable pattern, when you can count on him to show up when things get difficult, when his support becomes something you can depend on, that's when you know his feelings run deep. He's not helping occasionally when it's convenient. He's consistently present, consistently reliable, consistently making your life better in small and large ways. This reliability is especially powerful for older women who may have experienced relationships where partners were inconsistent, unreliable, or only present when things were easy. When a man consistently shows up, not just emotionally but practically, it speaks volumes about his character and his commitment level. He's demonstrating through actions, not just words, that he's someone you can count on. Now, here's an important nuance. Genuine helpfulness born from romantic interest looks different from someone who's trying to create obligation or dependency. When a man is truly falling for you, his help empowers you. It makes your life easier without making you feel less capable. It adds to your strength rather than highlighting any perceived weaknesses. He's not trying to make you need him. He's trying to make choosing him feel like a natural, beneficial decision. Be cautious of anyone whose helpfulness comes with subtle commentary about how much you need them, or how lost you'd be without them, or how difficult your life must have been before they came along. That's not love. That's manipulation. Genuine romantic interest manifests as support that celebrates your competence while offering to share life's burdens, not as help that undermines your confidence or creates dependency. So if you're trying to decode whether his helpfulness means something deeper, ask yourself these questions. Is his assistance consistent or sporadic? Does he anticipate your needs or only respond to direct requests? Does his help feel empowering or obligating? Does he remember small details about your life and preferences? Has he become someone you instinctively think of when you need support? Does he offer help in ways that respect your independence while making life easier? If you're answering yes to most of these questions, you're seeing the second clear sign that he's falling for you. He's not just offering help, he's building himself into your life, creating a space for himself that would leave a noticeable gap if he were suddenly gone. And that's exactly what someone does when they're hoping to become a permanent fixture in your world. Sign 3. He shows genuine curiosity about your past. The third revealing behavior when a man is falling for an older woman is his deep, genuine curiosity about your past, but not in a superficial way. He wants to understand the experiences, relationships, challenges, and triumphs that shaped you into the person you are today. This isn't idle curiosity or polite conversation filling. It's a hunger to know you completely, to understand your story, to see the full picture of who you've been and how you've evolved. And this curiosity comes with a particular quality. He asks questions that reveal he's genuinely trying to understand your perspective, not judging or comparing your experiences to some imaginary standard. Let's explore what this actually looks like in conversation. He asks about your previous relationships, not with jealousy or insecurity, but with genuine interest in understanding what you learned, how you grew, what patterns you recognize in retrospect. He wants to know about your career journey, not just where you've worked, but what drove your decisions, what challenges you faced as a woman in your industry at different points in your life, what victories you're most proud of. He asks about your friendships, your travels, your education, your family dynamics, the pivotal moments that redirected your life's path. What makes this behavior especially revealing is the depth and thoughtfulness of his questions. He's not satisfied with surface-level answers. When you mention a difficult period in your life, he gently probes to understand how you got through it, what inner resources you drew upon, who supported you, what you learned about yourself. When you mention a triumph, he wants to know the backstory, the obstacles you overcame, the moment you realized you'd succeeded. He's collecting pieces of your story like treasures, creating a comprehensive understanding of your journey. This behavior is psychologically significant for several reasons. First, it shows that he sees you as a complete person, not just as you exist in the present moment. Many people, especially in new relationships or potential relationships, focus exclusively on who someone is right now. They care about current interests, current opinions, current circumstances. But when a man is falling for an older woman, he understands that who you are today is the result of decades of experiences, choices, lessons, and growth. He wants to know all of it because he wants to truly know you. Second, his curiosity about your past demonstrates that he's trying to understand what makes you tick. Why do you react certain ways in certain situations? Why are particular things important to you? Why do you hold the values you hold? The answers to these questions lie in your history, and he knows it. He's studying you, not in a creepy way, but in the way someone studies a subject they find endlessly fascinating. Every story you tell, every detail you share, every memory you recount, adds another piece to the puzzle of understanding you completely. Third, and this is particularly important in age gap dynamics, his interest in your past helps him bridge the experience gap between you. He knows you've lived more, experienced more, learned more. By learning about your history, he's not just satisfying curiosity, he's educating himself about life stages and experiences he hasn't reached yet. He's trying to understand the landscape you've already traveled, so he can be a better companion for where you're going next. But here's what really sets apart romantic interest from mere friendly curiosity. When a man is falling for you, he remembers everything you tell him about your past. He doesn't just listen politely in the moment and then forget. The details stick. Weeks or months later, he might reference something you mentioned once in passing about your college years, or a story you told about your first job, or a lesson you learned from a past relationship. This retention of information reveals that your history isn't just interesting to him in an abstract way. It's precious to him because it's part of who you are. Notice also how he responds emotionally to your stories. When you share something painful from your past, does he react with empathy and compassion? Does he seem genuinely moved by what you've been through? When you share something triumphant, does he light up with vicarious pride? These emotional responses indicate that he's not just intellectually curious. He's emotionally invested in your story. Your pain affects him. Your victories thrill him. He's connecting with your history on a deep emotional level because he's connecting with you on that level. There's also something beautiful about how this curiosity manifests in terms of timing and appropriateness. When a man is genuinely interested romantically, he doesn't push for information you're not ready to share. He doesn't interrogate or pressure. Instead, he creates safe space for you to open up at your own pace. He might ask a question, but if he senses hesitation or discomfort, he backs off gracefully, making it clear that you never have to share anything you're not comfortable sharing. This respect for your boundaries while maintaining interest is a delicate balance that only someone who truly cares can strike. Contrast this with situations where romantic interest isn't present. In casual friendships, people might ask about your past occasionally, but it's surface level. Oh, where did you go to college? What did you do before this job? The questions are factual, seeking basic information but not deep understanding. There's no follow-up, no probing for the emotional truth beneath the facts, no evidence that the person is trying to construct a comprehensive understanding of your journey. And there's certainly no pattern of bringing up things you've mentioned previously because they weren't paying close enough attention to remember. Let's talk about a particularly revealing subset of this behavior: his interest in your past relationships. This is delicate territory, but how he navigates it tells you a lot about his feelings. When a man is falling for an older woman, he's curious about her relationship history, but not from a place of jealousy or comparison. He wants to understand what you've learned about love, what patterns you've noticed in what works and doesn't work for you, what you're looking for now based on what you've experienced before. He might ask questions like, what did that relationship teach you about what you need from a partner? Or, looking back, what do you wish you'd known then that you know now? Or, how has what you want in a relationship evolved over the years? These questions show that he's not threatened by your past. Instead, he sees it as a resource, a wealth of experience that's made you wiser about love and relationships, and he wants to benefit from that wisdom, to be the kind of partner your experiences have taught you to value. This is radically different from insecure responses to a partner's past. Some people, when they learn about your history, become jealous, possessive, or comparative. They want to know if past partners were better looking, more successful, more this or that. They get uncomfortable with the fact that you've loved before, lived before, been intimate with others before. But when a man is genuinely falling for an older woman, He approaches your past with maturity and curiosity rather than insecurity. He understands that your history made you who you are, and he loves who you are. There's also something touching about how he engages with stories about your younger years. Maybe you share a memory from your 20s, a time when you were figuring things out and making mistakes. Rather than judging you based on who you were then, he seems charmed by it, delighted to get a glimpse of you at different stages of development. He might say things like, "I wish I could have known you then," or "I love seeing how you've grown," or "That experience makes so much sense knowing who you are now." He's tracking your evolution with admiration, seeing the through line from who you were to who you've become. Another dimension of this curiosity worth noting is his interest in the cultural and historical context of your experiences. Depending on the age gap, you may have come of age in a different era, with different cultural norms, different technologies, different social movements shaping your worldview. When a man is falling for you, he's fascinated by this. He asks about what it was like to grow up without the internet, or to come of age during particular historical moments, or to navigate early career years in a world that looked very different from today's. He's not patronizing about these differences. He's genuinely interested in understanding the world that shaped you. This behavior also manifests in his interest in your accomplishments and defining moments. He wants to know about the achievements you're most proud of, the moments when you proved something to yourself, the times you overcame odds or surprised yourself with your own strength. He celebrates these victories with you, sometimes with more enthusiasm than you celebrate them yourself. Why? Because he's proud of you, and pride in someone's accomplishments is a clear sign of love and admiration. Pay attention to whether he connects your past experiences to present situations. Does he recall a lesson you learned years ago and point out how it's relevant to something you're facing now? Does he notice patterns across your history that might be useful to recognize? This kind of longitudinal thinking about your life shows that he's not just collecting random stories. He's building a comprehensive understanding of you as a person with a coherent narrative, consistent values, and recognizable patterns. He sees you whole. One more aspect of this curiosity deserves mention: his interest in the people who've been important in your life. He wants to hear about your best friend from childhood, the mentor who changed your perspective, the family member who influenced you most, the teacher who believed in you. He's curious about your inner circle, past and present, because he wants to understand the web of relationships that have shaped you and that you still hold dear. And perhaps, though he might not say it directly, he's trying to understand what kind of person matters to you, what qualities you value in the people you keep close, because he hopes to be one of those people. If you're trying to decode whether his questions about your past indicate romantic interest, consider these markers. Does he ask follow-up questions or just acknowledge your stories and move on? Does he remember details you've shared and reference them later? Does he show emotional responses to your history? Does he seem to be building a comprehensive understanding of your journey, not just collecting random facts? Does he respect your pace and boundaries while remaining consistently curious? Does he frame his questions in ways that show he's trying to understand you rather than judge you? If the answer to these questions is yes, you're witnessing the third unmistakable sign that he's falling for you. He doesn't just want to know the you of today. He wants to know the whole story, the full arc, every chapter that led to this moment. And that level of curiosity, that only comes from someone who's hoping to be part of the chapters yet to be written. Sign 4. He introduces you to his important people. The fourth thing a man will do when he's falling for an older woman is one of the most significant and telling behaviors. He makes a deliberate effort to introduce you to the important people in his life. This isn't casual, this isn't accidental. When a man starts integrating you into his inner circle, when he wants his friends, family, and colleagues to know about you and meet you, it's because you've become someone significant to him, someone he's proud to be associated with, someone he sees playing an important role in his future. Let's unpack what this actually means and why it's so revealing. Introducing someone to your inner circle is a statement. It says, "This person matters to me. I want them to be part of my world. I want the people I care about to know them and, hopefully, to like them." When a man introduces an older woman he's dating or interested in to his friends and family, he's also making an implicit statement about the seriousness of his feelings. He's not hiding the relationship or keeping you compartmentalized. He's claiming you in the best possible sense of that word. But there's additional complexity when an age gap is involved. Introducing an older romantic interest to friends and family takes courage because there might be questions, raised eyebrows, or even resistance. Society still hasn't fully embraced age gap relationships, particularly when the woman is older. So when a man proceeds with these introductions anyway, when he's willing to face potential scrutiny or commentary, it demonstrates something profound about the depth of his feelings. He's essentially saying, "What I feel for this woman is more important to me than anyone else's opinions about it." Notice how these introductions happen. Is there pride in his voice when he talks about you? Does he build you up before the meeting, telling his friends or family positive things about you? Does he seem excited for the people he cares about to meet you? These details matter because they reveal his emotional state. When we're falling for someone, we want to show them off. We want others to see what we see, to appreciate the remarkable person we've found. His enthusiasm about introducing you is direct evidence of how he feels. Pay attention also to the context of these introductions. Is he introducing you in intimate settings like family dinners or small friend gatherings where you'll have real opportunities to connect with these people? Or are introductions happening only in passing, in large group settings where you're just another face in the crowd? When romantic interest is serious, he creates opportunities for meaningful connection. He wants his people to really know you, not just meet you in passing. The timing of these introductions also reveals a lot. If he's rushing to introduce you to everyone important in his life relatively early in your connection, it suggests he's very certain about his feelings and eager to integrate you into every aspect of his existence. If introductions happen more gradually, with him bringing you into different circles of his life over time, it shows he's being thoughtful about pacing but still committed to the process. What would be concerning is if significant time passes and he makes no effort to introduce you to anyone important, or if he seems reluctant or evasive when the topic comes up. That would suggest he's not seeing the relationship as serious or doesn't see a future with you. Let's talk specifically about family introductions because these are particularly significant. Meeting someone's family is a big deal in any relationship, but it carries extra weight in age gap dynamics. When a man brings an older woman home to meet his parents, siblings, or other family members, he's managing potential complexity. Will his family be accepting? Will they question the age difference? Will they treat you with respect or make judgments? The fact that he's willing to navigate this complexity speaks volumes. He's essentially betting on his family's ability to see what he sees in you, to recognize your worth, to accept that this is what makes him happy, and he's also implicitly preparing to choose you, even if his family doesn't immediately come around. That's not a small thing. Family relationships are deeply important to most people, and risking family approval demonstrates serious commitment. Watch how he introduces you to his family. Does he frame you as a friend? Or does he make the romantic nature of your relationship clear? Does he advocate for you if family members seem skeptical? Does he create opportunities for you to connect with family members in ways that allow them to see your qualities and personality? A man who's serious about you doesn't hide the nature of your relationship or leave you to fend for yourself in potentially awkward family dynamics. He's an active participant in helping his family accept and appreciate you. Friend introductions carry their own significance. Our friends are, in many ways, a reflection of who we are and who we aspire to be. When a man introduces you to his friends, he's inviting you into his social world, trusting that you'll fit in, hoping that his friends will like you, and vice versa. But there's something else happening too. He's signaling to his friends that his relationship status is changing, that he's no longer available in the same way, that you're becoming a priority in his life. Notice whether he makes an effort to include you in friend activities, not just introduce you once and then maintain separate friend time. Is he inviting you to game nights, dinner parties, concerts, trips with his friends? Is he making space for you in his social calendar? This integration suggests he's reimagining his life, with you as a central figure, not an occasional addition. Also, watch how his friends respond to you and how he manages those responses. Does he seem concerned about whether you're having a good time? Does he check in with you if you're meeting a lot of new people at once? Does he make sure you're included in conversations and don't feel like an outsider? These small attentions show that your comfort and your experience of his world matter deeply to him. There's another dimension to this worth exploring: his interest in meeting your important people. Does he express curiosity about your friends and family? Does he ask to meet them? Does he make an effort to make a good impression when those meetings happen? Mutual interest in meeting each other's inner circles is a sign of serious intentions on both sides. It shows that this isn't just about the two of you in a bubble. It's about building a real relationship that exists in the context of both your lives, both your worlds. When a man meets your friends and family, watch how he behaves. Is he on his best behavior, clearly trying to make a good impression? Does he ask your friends and family thoughtful questions, showing genuine interest in the people who matter to you? Does he follow up afterward, asking what you think they thought of him, showing that their opinions matter? All of this indicates that he's invested in being accepted into your world, in being someone your loved ones can support you dating or being with. Let's address what it means when these introductions go well. If his friends and family respond positively to you, if they welcome you warmly and seem to accept the relationship, it reinforces his feelings and gives him additional confidence to move forward. Positive responses from loved ones often accelerate relationship development because they remove doubt and provide external validation of what he's feeling internally. But here's something crucial. Even if initial responses aren't entirely positive, what matters most is how he handles it. Does he remain committed to you? Does he give his loved ones time to adjust, while making clear that he's not going to abandon the relationship because of their initial skepticism? Or does he waver, becoming distant or uncertain if his people don't immediately embrace you? His response to resistance tells you everything about how serious he is. There's also something to be said about professional or colleague introductions. If you move in similar professional circles, or if he makes an effort to introduce you to people he works with, it's another sign of serious interest. Professional relationships are important, and integrating personal relationships into professional contexts is something we typically only do when we're very confident about the person and the relationship's trajectory. One more layer to this sign. Notice whether he integrates you into his online world as well as his offline one. Does he post pictures of you on social media? Does he mention you in posts or comments? Does he tag you in things or interact with your online presence in ways that make the relationship visible? In our modern world, social media presence has become another way we signal relationship seriousness. If he's making your connection visible in his digital life, it's because he wants the world to know about you, not just the people he knows in person. Now, let's talk about what's happening psychologically when these introductions occur. When a man brings you into his inner circles, he's essentially testing the waters of a future with you. He's seeing how you fit into his existing life, whether there's compatibility between you and the people he cares about, whether he can envision you as a lasting presence in his world. These introductions are dress rehearsals for a future where you're a permanent fixture, not a temporary guest. At the same time, he's giving you a gift, the gift of insight into who he is within his various relationships. You get to see how he interacts with his parents, how he behaves with his friends, how he's regarded by his colleagues. You're being given access to a fuller, more complete picture of him, and that access is only granted to people we trust and want to be close to. If you're trying to determine whether his introduction of you to important people signals romantic interest, ask yourself, how quickly did these introductions happen? How enthusiastic does he seem about them? How does he describe you to these people? Does he create opportunities for meaningful connection or just superficial meetings? Does he advocate for the relationship if others seem skeptical? Does he show interest in meeting your important people as well? Does he seem proud to be associated with you publicly? If the answers point toward genuine enthusiasm, pride, and intentional integration, you're seeing the fourth major sign that he's falling for you. He's not keeping you separate from the rest of his life. He's weaving you into every part of it, wanting you to meet the people who matter, wanting them to see what he sees, and beginning to build a shared world that includes both your inner circles. That's not the behavior of someone who's casually interested. That's the behavior of someone who's imagining a future with you in it. Sign 5. He's comfortable with vulnerability around you. The fifth thing a man will do when he's falling for an older woman is perhaps the most psychologically significant. He becomes genuinely comfortable with vulnerability in your presence. He shares his fears, insecurities, failures, and uncertainties without the armor most men wear in the world. He lets you see him when he's not at his best, when he's confused or struggling or unsure. This level of emotional openness is rare for men in general, but it's especially significant with an older woman because it shows he doesn't feel the need to perform constant strength or competence to earn your respect or interest. Let's explore what this vulnerability actually looks like. He admits when he doesn't know something rather than pretending expertise he doesn't have. He shares moments of self-doubt about his career, his decisions, his abilities. He talks about fears he doesn't typically voice to anyone. Fear of failure, fear of disappointing people, fear of not living up to his own potential. He tells you about relationships or situations that went wrong and his role in those failures. He expresses uncertainty about big life questions, what he wants, where he's heading, whether he's on the right path. This behavior is profoundly revealing because men are socialized from an early age to hide vulnerability, to equate emotional openness with weakness, to believe that revealing uncertainty or fear will cost them respect and admiration. Most men spend their entire lives maintaining a facade of having everything together, of being strong and certain and capable at all times. Breaking through that conditioning to be genuinely vulnerable is not easy, and it only happens when a man feels truly safe, truly seen, and truly accepted by someone. When he's falling for you, he feels that safety with you. Why? Because he senses that you won't weaponize his vulnerability, use it against him, or think less of him for being human. He trusts that you have enough emotional maturity and life experience to understand that strength and vulnerability aren't opposites, that real courage includes admitting when you're scared, and that being open about struggles doesn't mean you're weak. There's a particular quality to the vulnerability he shows you that distinguishes it from mere complaining or venting. When a man is genuinely being vulnerable with romantic intentions, he's not just dumping problems on you or expecting you to fix things. He's sharing his inner emotional landscape, inviting you to understand what he feels beneath the surface of what he shows the world. He might say things like, "I don't usually talk about this with anyone, but," or "I've never told anyone this before," or "I don't know why I'm sharing this with you, but I feel like you'll understand." These preambles are significant. They reveal that he's aware he's crossing into unusual territory with you, that he's making a conscious choice to be more open than he typically allows himself to be. And that conscious choice is a gift. He's giving you access to parts of himself he keeps locked away from others, and that access is a form of intimacy that often precedes and predicts romantic love. Watch what kinds of vulnerabilities he shares. Is it just surface-level stuff, admitting to minor flaws or socially acceptable insecurities? Or is he going deeper, sharing fears and doubts that touch on his sense of self-worth, his core identity, his deepest worries about who he is and whether he's enough? The depth of vulnerability correlates directly with the depth of trust and emotional connection he feels with you. Pay attention also to when these vulnerable moments occur. Do they happen in casual, everyday conversations, or only when he's in crisis? When romantic interest is present, vulnerability isn't reserved for dramatic moments of breakdown. It becomes woven into regular interaction. He might casually mention feeling nervous about something upcoming, or admit he's been feeling a bit lost lately, or share a moment of insecurity without making it a big deal. This integrated vulnerability shows that being emotionally authentic with you has become natural for him, not something he only permits in extreme circumstances. There's something else to notice: how he responds when you reflect vulnerability back to him. When you share your own struggles, fears, or uncertainties, does he meet you with empathy and openness, or does he try to fix, minimize, or redirect? When a man is falling for you, your vulnerability doesn't make him uncomfortable or trigger his problem-solving instincts. Instead, he simply holds space for what you're feeling, validates your emotions, and meets your openness with his own. There's a beautiful reciprocity to vulnerability in developing romantic relationships, a back and forth that deepens connection with each exchange. Let's talk about a particularly powerful form of vulnerability: when he admits to struggling with something specifically because of his age or life stage. Maybe he confesses that he sometimes feels like he should have achieved more by now, or that he worries about whether he's mature enough for you, or that he feels insecure about the experience gap between you. These admissions are especially significant because they touch on the age dynamic directly. He's acknowledging his awareness of the difference, his concerns about it, his fears that it might matter to you. This is profound trust, laying bare insecurities that many men would never voice. How you respond to these moments matters enormously. If you respond with judgment, dismissal, or by confirming his fears, you'll shut down that vulnerability immediately and possibly permanently. But if you respond with reassurance, acceptance, and appreciation for his honesty, you signal that he's safe with you, that his vulnerability doesn't cost him your respect, and that you value his willingness to be real. This positive reinforcement encourages more vulnerability, deepening the intimacy between you. There's also a particular kind of vulnerability that emerges around emotions specifically about you. He might admit that he thinks about you often, that he looks forward to seeing you with an intensity that surprises him, that he feels nervous before you meet up because he wants things to go well, that he finds himself wanting to tell you about things that happen to him throughout his day. These admissions are vulnerable because they reveal the extent of his feelings, opening him up to potential rejection or embarrassment. Making these admissions requires courage, and doing so tells you that his feelings have reached a point where hiding them feels more difficult than the risk of expressing them. Compare this with how many people, especially men, behave in dating contexts. There's often a game of emotional chicken where both people try to reveal less than the other person, to maintain power by being less invested, to protect themselves from vulnerability. But when someone is genuinely falling for you, that game becomes impossible to sustain. The feelings are too strong, too real to continue hiding. Vulnerability stops being a calculated risk and becomes an irresistible compulsion. He needs you to know what he feels, even if the knowledge makes him exposed. Another dimension of this vulnerability shows up in his willingness to appear imperfect in front of you. He doesn't always try to present his best self. He's okay with you seeing him when he's tired, stressed, having a bad day, or dealing with mundane life challenges. He might answer your call when he's in the middle of doing something messy, or invite you over when his apartment isn't perfectly clean, or let you see him when he's not looking his best. This comfort with imperfection around you signals that he's not trying to maintain an impossible standard or trick you into thinking he's someone he's not. He trusts that you'll accept the full, real version of him, not just a polished facade. There's something particularly touching about moments when he admits to being affected by you in ways he didn't expect or doesn't fully understand. He might say something like, "I don't know what it is about you, but I feel different when I'm around you." Or, "I didn't think I was looking for a relationship, but then I met you." Or, "You make me want to be a better version of myself." These statements are vulnerable because they acknowledge that you have power over his emotional state, that you've gotten under his skin in ways he can't entirely control. Giving someone that kind of power is scary, and doing so requires deep trust. Let me address something important: the difference between healthy vulnerability and emotional dumping. Healthy vulnerability is about sharing your authentic inner experience while still taking responsibility for your emotions and actions. It's about letting someone see your struggles without making them responsible for fixing or managing them. Emotional dumping, on the other hand, is using someone else as a trash can for your negative emotions without regard for their capacity to receive it, without taking responsibility, and without doing your own emotional work. When a man is genuinely falling for you, his vulnerability falls into the healthy category. He shares what he's feeling, but he doesn't expect you to fix it. He might ask for your perspective, but he doesn't demand that you solve his problems. He takes responsibility for his emotions and his choices, even when sharing doubt or regret about them. This balanced vulnerability is a sign of emotional maturity, and it's exactly the kind that builds intimacy rather than creating burden. Watch also for how his vulnerability evolves over time. In the beginning, he might test the waters with small admissions, seeing how you respond before going deeper. As he becomes more confident in your acceptance, his vulnerability becomes more extensive, more nuanced, more central to your interactions. This progression shows that trust is building, that the relationship is deepening, and that he's increasingly comfortable showing you his full self. One final aspect of this sign to consider: notice whether his vulnerability creates opportunities for you to be vulnerable in return. The best relationships are built on reciprocal vulnerability, where both people feel safe enough to be fully authentic. When a man's vulnerability is genuine and healthy, it naturally invites you to share your own fears, doubts, and struggles. If you find yourself opening up to him in ways you don't typically allow yourself, it's likely because he's created a safe space through his own willingness to be vulnerable first. If you're trying to determine whether his vulnerability indicates romantic interest, ask yourself, is he sharing deeper, more personal things with you than he seems to share with others? Does his vulnerability feel calculated and performative, or genuine and spontaneous? Does he trust you with insecurities specifically related to your potential relationship? Is he comfortable appearing imperfect around you? Does his vulnerability invite reciprocal openness from you? Does the vulnerability deepen over time as your connection grows? If you're seeing these patterns, you're witnessing the fifth critical sign that he's falling for you. He's letting you past his defenses, showing you his real self with all its imperfections and uncertainties, and trusting that you'll value what you see. In a world where most people wear masks, choosing to be maskless with someone is an act of faith, hope, and love. And that's exactly what he's offering you. Sign 6. He plans for your future together. The sixth thing a man will do when he's falling for an older woman is begin to weave her into his vision of the future. This manifests in both small, near-term ways and larger, long-term ways. He starts making plans that include you, not just for next weekend, but for months or even years from now. He talks about future events, experiences, and possibilities with the implicit or explicit assumption that you'll be there. He begins to adjust his life trajectory to account for your presence in it. This future-oriented thinking is one of the clearest signs that his feelings have moved beyond casual interest into serious romantic investment. Let's explore what this looks like in practical terms. In conversation, he casually mentions future events with language that includes you. We should check out that festival next spring, or I want to take you to this restaurant I've been reading about, but it's booked out 6 months. Or when you meet my friend Sarah next year when she visits, you two are going to love each other. The time frames extend further and further into the future, and the certainty with which he assumes your presence grows stronger over time. But it goes beyond casual plans for activities. He starts making life decisions with your potential relationship in mind. Maybe he's considering a job change, and he discusses with you how different options might affect his ability to spend time with you. Maybe he's thinking about moving, and he either considers locations closer to you or directly asks how you'd feel about certain areas. Maybe he's planning a big purchase, and he talks through with you how it might fit into a shared life. These aren't just polite consultations. They're evidence that you've become a factor in his decision-making process, that he's beginning to think in terms of we rather than just I. This behavior is psychologically revealing in profound ways. Future planning is one of the key indicators of serious romantic intention because it requires both optimism about the relationship's potential and willingness to commit to it. When someone includes you in their future plans, they're essentially saying, I'm betting on us. I believe we have staying power. I'm willing to shape my life around the possibility of being with you. There's particular courage required for a younger man to do this with an older woman. He might worry about whether you're taking the relationship as seriously as he is, whether you see him as a legitimate long-term prospect, whether the age difference might make you hesitant about long-term commitment. Making future plans in this context requires him to be vulnerable about his intentions and hopes, risking rejection or the possibility that you don't see the same future he does. Watch for how specific and concrete his future planning becomes. Is it all vague "someday we should" statements? Or does he actually put things on the calendar? Does he buy tickets to events months from now, assuming you'll be together and interested in attending? Does he make reservations that lock in future dates? This concreteness reveals confidence in the relationship's trajectory. Vague someday talk could be idle fantasy, but concrete plans are commitments. Pay attention also to whether his future plans incorporate your interests, needs, and preferences, not just his own. If he's making plans that show he's been listening to what matters to you, what you enjoy, what you've mentioned wanting to experience, it demonstrates that his vision of the future isn't just about having someone anyone by his side. It's specifically about sharing experiences with you, building a life that honors both your individuality and your connection. There's a particular category of future planning that's especially significant. Plans that require coordination between your lives. Maybe he suggests taking a trip together that would require you both to request time off work. Maybe he proposes attending an event that's important to one of you in a way that requires the other to make accommodations. Maybe he talks about holidays and how you might spend them, implicitly acknowledging that your lives are becoming intertwined enough that holiday planning needs to account for both of you. These coordination-requiring plans are significant because they move beyond casual dates into the territory of genuine life integration. They acknowledge that being together isn't just about the time you spend face-to-face, but about how you structure your separate lives to make space for the relationship. This level of planning only happens when someone is serious about making the relationship work long-term. Notice whether his future planning includes introducing you to experiences that are important to him. Maybe there's an annual trip he takes with friends and he starts talking about you joining next year. Maybe there's a family tradition and he mentions wanting to include you. Maybe there's a hobby or interest that's central to his life, and he makes plans to share it with you in the future. Including you in these significant parts of his life signals that he sees you becoming a permanent fixture, not a temporary guest. Let's talk about the big milestones and how he approaches them in conversation. Does he ever reference, even jokingly or in passing, major relationship milestones like moving in together, marriage, or building a shared life? Even if these references are lighthearted or framed as hypothetical, they reveal that his mind is traveling down that path, considering what those possibilities might look like with you. He's testing the waters, seeing how you respond to these ideas, gauging whether you've thought about them too. With older women, there's sometimes complexity around topics like children and family planning. If this is relevant to either of you, notice how he approaches these conversations. Is he curious about your thoughts and feelings? Is he honest about his own desires and flexible about possibilities? Does he show willingness to navigate complexity in service of the relationship? His approach to these potentially challenging topics tells you a lot about how seriously he's considering a future with you and how mature he is about relationship realities. There's also something revealing about how he talks about your individual futures in relation to each other. Does he express interest in supporting your goals and dreams? Does he talk about his own aspirations in ways that leave room for you? Does he seem to be thinking about how you might support each other's growth, rather than competing or existing in parallel? When someone sees you in their future, they don't just see you next to them. They see you intertwined with them, each enhancing the other's journey. Another dimension of this future planning shows up in how he talks about aging and life stages. Does he seem unbothered by or even excited about experiencing different life stages with you? Does he talk about growing old together, even if in lighthearted ways? With an age gap relationship, there's built-in awareness that you're at different life stages. His comfort with and enthusiasm about navigating these differences speaks to genuine commitment. Compare this behavior with how people act when they're not seriously invested in a relationship. When interest is casual or uncertain, people keep their options open. They avoid making firm plans far in advance. They speak about the future in individualistic terms, focusing on their own plans without consideration for a partner. They certainly don't make life decisions in consultation with someone they're not serious about. The presence of future planning, especially detailed, concrete, integrated future planning, is one of the most reliable indicators of serious romantic intention. There's a particular sweetness to moments when his future planning shows he's been paying attention to things you've mentioned wanting or hoping for. Maybe you once said you've always wanted to visit a particular place, and months later he brings up planning a trip there together. Maybe you mentioned a skill you want to learn, and he finds a class you could take together. Maybe you shared a dream or goal, and he talks about how he could support you in achieving it. This attentiveness to your expressed hopes and dreams, combined with active planning to help fulfill them, is extraordinarily romantic. Watch also for how he responds when you make future plans of your own. Are you excited when you include him in your thinking about the future? If you mention something you're planning months from now, does he naturally assume he'll be part of it? Or at least express interest in being included? Does he show concern or disappointment if your plans seem to exclude him? His reactions to your future planning reveal whether he sees himself as a permanent part of your landscape or a temporary visitor. There's also a financial dimension to future planning that deserves mention. Does he show willingness to make financial commitments related to a future with you? This doesn't mean he needs to be wealthy or extravagant, but there's a difference between someone who's always keeping expenditures minimal because they're not sure if you'll be around, and someone who's willing to invest in experiences, items, or arrangements that assume ongoing connection. Financial investment, even in small ways, is tangible evidence of commitment to the future. One more aspect of this sign. Notice whether his future planning becomes more detailed and concrete over time. In the early stages of falling in love, future planning might be tentative and vague, but as feelings deepen and confidence grows, the plans should become more specific, more extensive, and more integrated with his overall life trajectory. This progression shows that he's not just fantasizing about a future with you, he's actively working toward building it. If you're trying to determine whether his future planning indicates romantic intention, ask yourself, does he consistently make plans that extend further and further into the future? Are these plans concrete and specific or vague and non-committal? Does he make life decisions with your relationship in mind? Does he include you naturally in his vision of what's coming? Does he show interest in coordinating your lives, not just scheduling occasional dates? Do his plans honor your individual dreams and goals while building something shared? Does his future planning become more detailed and committed over time? If these patterns are present, you're seeing the sixth major sign that he's falling for you. He's not living in the moment alone. He's building toward a tomorrow that has you in it, making choices today that create the foundation for a shared future. And that kind of forward-thinking commitment only comes from someone whose feelings are serious, deep, and oriented toward lasting connection. When a man starts planning a future with you, he's not just falling for who you are now. He's falling for the life he imagines building with you, the experiences he wants to share, the journey he hopes you'll take together. That's not casual interest. That's love taking root and beginning to grow. Sign 7. He defends and champions you. The seventh and final thing a man will do when he's falling for an older woman is perhaps the most powerful demonstration of his feelings. He becomes your champion, your defender, your advocate in every context. He stands up for you, speaks highly of you in your absence, defends you against criticism or skepticism, and actively works to ensure that others see and appreciate your value. This protective and promotional behavior reveals that his regard for you isn't just private. It's something he's willing to declare and defend publicly, even when doing so might be uncomfortable or costly. Let's explore what this advocacy looks like in practice. When others make comments, subtle or overt, about the age difference between you, he shuts it down immediately. He doesn't tolerate jokes at your expense or suggestions that the age gap is strange, inappropriate, or doomed to fail. He makes clear through words and tone that comments about the age difference are out of bounds, that he finds them disrespectful, and that they won't be entertained. This immediate defense is crucial because it shows he's not ambivalent or uncertain about your relationship. He's committed to it and willing to face social discomfort to protect it. But his championship goes beyond just defending against negativity. He actively promotes you, talking about your accomplishments, your qualities, your perspectives to others. He brings you up in conversations when you're not there, sharing things you've taught him, experiences you've had, insights you've shared. He's proud to be associated with you, and he wants others to understand why he finds you so remarkable. This proactive advocacy reveals that his admiration for you isn't performative, something he only displays when you're present. It's genuine and constant. Watch how he responds when friends or family members express skepticism about your relationship. Does he listen to their concerns and then firmly but respectfully explain why those concerns are misplaced? Does he provide context that helps them see the relationship through his eyes? Or does he waver, becoming defensive or uncertain when challenged? A man who's genuinely falling for you won't be shaken by others' doubts. He might hear them out, might even consider whether they raise valid points, but ultimately his commitment to you and confidence in the relationship will outweigh external skepticism. There's a particular form of championship that's especially revealing: how he handles situations where you're being underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed because of your age or gender. In professional contexts, social situations, or even casual interactions, if someone fails to take you seriously or doesn't accord you proper respect, does he step in? Does he redirect attention to you, validate your contributions, ensure you're being heard? This active advocacy in moments when you might be marginalized shows that he's attuned to the challenges you might face and committed to being an ally. But his defense of you isn't overbearing or infantilizing. He doesn't treat you like you need protecting or like you can't handle things yourself. Instead, his advocacy is partnership. He stands beside you, adding his voice to yours, ensuring that you're supported but not speaking over you or taking away your agency. This balance is crucial and shows emotional intelligence. He understands that championing you doesn't mean treating you as fragile or incapable. It means being a reliable presence who amplifies rather than replaces your voice. Notice how he talks about you to others. Does he use language that reflects pride and admiration? Does he light up when your name comes into conversation? Do his friends and family report that he talks about you frequently and enthusiastically? The way someone speaks about you when you're not around is one of the truest indicators of their feelings. If he's genuinely falling for you, you're frequently on his mind and often on his lips, and the things he says about you are consistently positive, appreciative, and respectful. There's also something touching about how he handles compliments or positive attention directed at you. Does he seem pleased and proud when others recognize your qualities? Does he add his own agreement or share additional positive things about you? Or does he seem uncomfortable or competitive, as if positive attention toward you somehow diminishes him? A man who's secure in his feelings for you and confident in himself will genuinely celebrate when you're recognized and appreciated. Your wins feel like shared wins because he's emotionally invested in your happiness and success. Let's talk about a specific and particularly significant form of defense: how he responds when people question whether he's mature enough for you or suggest that you're too old for him. These are common refrains in age gap relationships, and they can be painful for both people involved. When these questions or comments arise, does he firmly reject the premise? Does he point out the arbitrary and ageist nature of these judgments? Does he emphasize that maturity isn't just a function of age and that compatibility isn't determined by birth year? His ability to articulate why the age difference isn't a barrier demonstrates that he's thought deeply about it and has developed strong, well-reasoned conviction about your relationship. There's another layer to his championship that shows up in how he responds to your self-criticism or moments of self-doubt. We all have moments where we're hard on ourselves, where we focus on our perceived flaws or failures. When you express these doubts, particularly doubts related to age or whether you're too old for something, including for him, how does he respond? Does he immediately counter those doubts with reminders of your worth? Does he get genuinely upset at the idea of you thinking negatively about yourself? Does he work to shift your perspective, helping you see yourself more positively? This kind of championship, defending you even from yourself, is particularly powerful because it shows that his high regard for you is unwavering. Even when you lose sight of your own value, he holds steady in his appreciation of you. He becomes a mirror reflecting back your worth when you've temporarily forgotten it. This is the behavior of someone who's not just attracted to you, but genuinely invested in your well-being and happiness. Watch also for how he handles situations where your interests or needs conflict with those of others, particularly his friends or family. If there's a scheduling conflict, does he prioritize you? If his friends want to do something that excludes you or that he knows you wouldn't enjoy, does he decline or try to find alternatives that include you? If family members express reservations about you, does he make clear that their acceptance isn't conditional for his commitment? These moments of choosing you, especially when those choices involve some cost or discomfort, are powerful demonstrations of his priorities and feelings. There's a particular kind of defense that's less obvious but equally important: championing your dreams, goals, and aspirations. Does he actively support your ambitions? When you express wanting to achieve something or try something new, is he your biggest cheerleader? Does he help brainstorm ways to move toward your goals? Does he offer tangible support, whether that's time, resources, connections, or simply unwavering encouragement? This championing of your growth and aspirations shows that his investment in you extends beyond the present moment. He wants to see you thrive, succeed, and become even more fully yourself. Compare this with how people behave when they're not seriously invested. When romantic feelings aren't deep or intentions aren't serious, people might passively support you, but they don't actively advocate for you. They don't go out of their way to sing your praises to others. They might agree if someone criticizes the relationship, but they certainly don't mount a passionate defense. They don't prioritize you when conflicts arise. Their support is passive at best, absent at worst. Active, vocal, consistent championship only comes from someone whose feelings are profound. There's also something revealing about how public he's willing to be with his advocacy. Does he defend you and champion you only in private settings? Or is he willing to do so publicly, even when it might be socially awkward or met with judgment? Public advocacy is riskier because it involves declaring his feelings and commitment in ways that can't be easily taken back. When he's willing to be publicly supportive, even enthusiastically so, it shows he's past any phase of uncertainty or hedging. He's all in. One more dimension of this championship deserves attention: his response when you advocate for or defend yourself. Does he seem relieved, proud, supportive of your self-advocacy, or does he seem threatened or emasculated when you don't need him to fight your battles? A mature man who's genuinely falling for you will be proud of your ability to stand up for yourself. He doesn't need you to be helpless to feel useful. His championship exists alongside, not in place of, your own strength and agency. Notice whether his defense of you creates consequences he's willing to accept. If standing up for you means having a difficult conversation with a friend, does he have it? If defending your relationship means facing family tension, does he face it? If championing you means going against social expectations or norms, does he do it anyway? The willingness to accept consequences for advocacy is the ultimate proof that the advocacy is genuine. It's easy to support someone when it costs nothing. Real championship shows up when there's a price to pay, and he pays it willingly. There's one final aspect of this sign that ties everything together. Watch whether his championship is consistent across time and context. Does he defend you when it's easy and retreat when it's hard? Does he champion you in some settings but not others? Or is his advocacy reliable, present in all contexts, unwavering across time? Consistency is the hallmark of genuine feeling. When someone's support and defense of you never wavers, when it's as present in difficult moments as in easy ones, when it shows up whether you're there to witness it or not, you can trust that it comes from a deep and authentic place. If you're trying to determine whether his championship indicates romantic love, ask yourself, does he actively defend you and the relationship against criticism or skepticism? Does he speak highly of you to others when you're not present? Does he prioritize you when conflicts arise between your needs and others' expectations? Does he champion your dreams and aspirations? Is he willing to face social discomfort or consequences to support you? Does he defend you even from your own self-doubt? Is his advocacy public and private, consistent and unwavering? If these patterns are present, you're witnessing the seventh and final major sign that he's falling for you. He's not just privately appreciating you, he's publicly claiming association with you, defending the relationship against doubt, and working to ensure that everyone in his world understands that you matter to him profoundly. This kind of advocacy only comes from love, the kind of love that's willing to take stands, face challenges, and declare itself openly. When a man becomes your champion, he's saying with his actions what his words might not yet have fully expressed. You are precious to me. What we have is worth protecting, and I'm committed to honoring and defending you and this connection, no matter what. So there you have it. 7 unmistakable things a man will do when he's genuinely falling for an older woman. Let's recap quickly. First, he seeks your advice and actually implements it, showing that he values your wisdom and wants to incorporate your perspective into his life. Second, he makes himself indispensable in subtle ways, weaving himself into the practical fabric of your daily life. Third, he shows genuine curiosity about your past, wanting to understand the full arc of your story. Fourth, he introduces you to his important people, integrating you into his inner circle. Fifth, he's comfortable with vulnerability around you, letting you see his authentic self with all its imperfections. Sixth, he plans for your future together, making decisions and arrangements that assume your ongoing presence in his life. And seventh, he defends and champions you, becoming your advocate in every context and proudly declaring his regard for you. Each of these behaviors on its own might be meaningful, but when you see them consistently as a pattern, you're witnessing something profound, a man falling in love. These aren't the behaviors of casual interest or friendly affection. These are the actions of someone whose feelings have deepened into something significant. Someone who sees you not just as an appealing person, but as a potential life partner. Someone who's willing to be vulnerable, to integrate your life with his, to face potential judgment or skepticism, all because what he feels for you outweighs any concerns or obstacles. Now, I want to take a moment to speak directly to you, the remarkable woman watching this video. If you've recognized these signs in someone in your life, you might be feeling a mixture of emotions right now. Perhaps there's excitement, the thrilling recognition that someone you care about might care for you equally. Perhaps there's fear or uncertainty because acknowledging mutual feelings means facing questions about what comes next. Perhaps there's disbelief because you've been told, overtly or subtly, that you're too old to inspire this kind of passionate interest. Let me be clear about something. You are not too old. You are not past your prime. You are not invisible or undesirable or relegated to the sidelines of romantic life. The story that women become less valuable, less attractive, less worthy of passionate love as they age is a lie, a toxic narrative that serves no one but those who benefit from keeping women insecure and small. The truth is that you, with your life experience, your hard-won wisdom, your confidence, your depth, your capacity for genuine connection, you are extraordinarily appealing. You are exactly what many men, once they mature enough to recognize it, are looking for. So if a man is showing you these signs, if he's pursuing you with intention, seriousness, and genuine regard, I encourage you to take it seriously. Don't dismiss it because of age difference. Don't downplay it because you've internalized messages about who's supposed to be interested in whom. Don't talk yourself out of something potentially beautiful because it doesn't fit some narrow, outdated script about how romance is supposed to unfold. At the same time, remember that recognizing his interest is just the beginning. You still get to choose. You get to decide whether you reciprocate these feelings, whether you want to pursue this connection, whether this particular person is right for you, regardless of how he feels. The presence of his interest doesn't obligate you to anything. It simply gives you information, clarity about where he stands, so you can make informed decisions about where you stand and what you want. If you do reciprocate his feelings, if you're ready to explore this connection, then I encourage you to be brave. Be willing to have honest conversations about what you both want, what you're both afraid of, how you might navigate an age gap relationship in a world that might not always understand or support it. Be willing to be vulnerable in return, to let him see that his feelings are met with equal depth and seriousness. Be willing to take the leap, to choose hope and possibility over fear and protective cynicism. And if you're not sure yet, if you need time to process what you're feeling and what you want, that's completely valid too. There's no rush. Good love is patient. If his feelings are genuine and the signs we've discussed suggest they are, then he'll give you the space to find your own clarity. He'll respect your need to move at your own pace. One more thing I'll want to say, and this is important. Your worth is not determined by whether any particular man is interested in you. You were valuable, remarkable, and deserving of love before he noticed you, and you'll continue to be those things regardless of how this particular connection unfolds. Please don't let anyone's romantic interest or lack thereof determine how you see yourself. Your value is inherent, not contingent. But if this video has helped you recognize that someone special sees what makes you special, if it's given you clarity about feelings that might have been confusing, if it's empowered you to trust your instincts and consider possibilities you might have been dismissing, then I'm grateful I could play a small part in your journey. Before we close, I want to ask you for a few things. If this video provided value, if it helped you see your situation more clearly, if it gave you hope or encouragement or simply useful information, please hit that like button. It helps more people find this content, and every like tells me that this message is resonating and needed. I'd also love to hear your thoughts, your experiences, your stories in the comments. Have you noticed these signs in someone in your life? Are you navigating an age gap relationship? What questions do you still have? Your comments create community, help others feel less alone, and give me insights into what content would be most helpful going forward. Please share this video with anyone who might benefit from it. Maybe you have a friend who's been downplaying a younger man's interest, or maybe you know someone who needs permission to take their own romantic life seriously regardless of age. Sharing this content is how we combat ageist narratives and spread empowering truths. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We create regular content about relationship dynamics, emotional intelligence, psychological insights, and all the tools you need to navigate love, connection, and personal growth with wisdom and confidence. Subscribing ensures you don't miss future videos that might be exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. Finally, if you really want to support this channel and the work we do, if you want to help us continue creating in-depth, thoughtful content that challenges mainstream narratives and empowers people to see themselves and their relationships more clearly, please consider leaving a super thanks. Every contribution, no matter how small, makes a difference and allows us to keep doing this work. Thank you so much for being here, for watching all the way to the end, for being part of this community. Remember, you are seen, you are valued, you are deserving of love that recognizes and celebrates everything you are. Don't let anyone, including that voice of doubt in your own head, convince you otherwise. Your best chapters might still be ahead, and they might include love stories more beautiful than anything you've experienced before. Stay open, stay brave, stay true to yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.